right, we're going to go ahead and have the pledge, and then Commissioner Groening will have our prayer.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Heavenly Father, we come to you this morning with humble hearts as we look to do the county business. We thank you for this opportunity to be able to serve our community, dear Lord, and give back to just all the blessings and things that you've poured out upon our community. Continue to give us wisdom and discernment in all our ways. Ask your blessing upon today's proceedings. We glorify unto you in Jesus' name.
All right, we'll call our meeting to order and entertain a motion for the claims and minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, aye?
Aye.
All right. Daryl. Morning, sir.
Good morning to all. And I am truly humbled to have the opportunity to recognize the Commissioner's Choice veteran for the month of August. Sitting to talk to him, I get a brief moment and I get to learn about more history that you don't find in our books. And it's always a pleasure to talk to each and every one of our veterans that served this community and served our nation. With that, James Whitaker is a son of Albert and Cynthia, born on August 7th, 1944 in Manchester, Indiana. Attended Silver Lake High School, graduated in the summer of '64, where according to his brother Sam, he excelled in basketball. Shortly after high school graduation, James enlisted in the United States Army in December of 1964. He was sent to Fort Knox, Kentucky to conduct his Army basic training and followed by his advanced individual training to Fort Dix, New Jersey. Love that place, don't you? Yeah, it's an interesting place, especially when you're a trainee. April 1965, he was stationed in Korea near the DMZ, demilitarized zone, until 1966. James followed on assignment, was at West Point. Hey, probably would have stayed in the Army if they'd have kept you there, huh? Yeah, I got you. Here's the challenging part. It's the home of the U.S. Army Military Academy. And his job as a sergeant, new sergeant, was to herd cats. What I mean by that is arrange ground transportation by bus for the academy cadets, whether the band, football, or any of the other clubs, getting them from one location to the other in the lower 48 until he's honorably discharged in the military, rank at sergeant in December of 1967. James' military service to our nation did not stop there. In 1979, he joined the Indiana National Guard, where he was deployed to Kuwait during the Gulf War. After serving a combined of 24 years of military service and achieving the enlisted rank of Master Sergeant at E7, James retired from the Air National Guard in 2003. After his discharge from the Army, though, James was employed by Uniroyal as a mechanic, followed by where he went and found a job and worked for W.J. Carey Construction Company for 5 years before starting his own construction company known as D&J Construction in 1976, until his retirement as well in 2003. James and his lovely wife, Barbara, enjoy splitting their time between the greater Indiana, and they joined down in Florida for a little while just to get away from the colder individuals here, so they split their time between the two. But during this time, it has been my great honor in knowing you and talking to you, and I'd like to introduce the Veteran of the Month, James Whitaker. All right, Kosciuszko County awards the Veteran of the Month to James Edward Whitaker in recognition for your outstanding contributions to the mission serving the people of the United States and the residents of Kosciuszko County, and the honorable service as a member of the United States Army. Hoorah! Signed, Commissioners. Thank you. For your service.
I'm not very good at that. I'm not very good at speaking. But I appreciate everybody that has come in with this. Thank you for everything.
Very good.
Thank you.
Very good. Appreciate you.
I'll take two first. 1, 2, 3. Some more. 1, 2, 3.
I'm thinking a bunch, and you don't know what to do.
Thanks, Daryl. Steve. Okay. Sheriff. Morning, sir.
Good morning, Commissioner.
Good morning.
Marcia. I'm here today to present January to June 2023 commissary report. It's my understanding that it was sent to you electronically. Here to answer any questions that you may have. I have Cheryl, my bookkeeper, with me, just in case there's any questions you may have.
Any questions, John?
No.
Okay.
That's it.
We need a motion to approve that?
I don't think we have to prove that. We need a motion for that,
Just
do we?
FYI.
No, it's just, he just has to report to us occasionally on what the comments.
We're here if you have any questions
Yep.
moving forward.
Okay.
Appreciate
Thank
your
you.
report,
Thank you.
detail on it.
All right. Okay, Eric? Good morning.
Morning.
I'm here to talk this morning about the formation of a cybersecurity/technology committee. In the past year or so, there have been a lot of changes. We've implemented multi-factor authentication, rolling out KnowBe4. And we've swapped out network switches, and we got some more network upgrades coming along the way. And with Bob and Paul retiring, just thought now would be a good time to increase communication and keep key stakeholders in the loop. So I drafted a document. I think you guys have access to this. Or got it. So I'm going to briefly go over it real quickly. So the goal, the cybersecurity/technology committee aims to keep key stakeholders in the loop of current and future technology projects. This committee will meet quarterly or as needed to discuss technology matters. It'll include members from multiple departments, and the ultimate goal is to help the IT department better serve the county and its stakeholders. So some key objectives: keep everyone informed, look at possible grants for strengthening the county's cybersecurity standing, draft and improve documentation like an incident response plan or some other documentation. Another objective is to go over best use practices and make recommendations if necessary. Provide a sounding board for new technology initiatives, and to have open and honest communication. And then the proposed members would be Bob Momeyer and myself, Marcia McSherry, Carrie Groninger, Kimberly Cates, Chris McCann, and Ann Torpy and Melissa Boggs, and then Kip Sheeter from EMA. So.
I guess a couple of things I'd like to add. I know part of this is coming from, we had a cybersecurity assessment done with Purdue and IU kind of worked together and walked through our cybersecurity here at the county. I know that the IT staff and a lot of the others were instrumental in getting all that information to them. I was in a kind of review meeting there a couple of weeks ago, and one of their top initiatives that they really wanted to see is establishment of this committee, just so there's that communication kind of from top to bottom. Everybody knows what's going on in the county, what we're doing to try and better protect ourselves and shore up our flanks a little bit. So, but the report was really good. I mean, there's a lot of favorable things that the IT department has been doing. But in today's litigious or world of bad guys, you know, you always have to be on your guard and ever improving and ever getting better. And I think this is a great step towards improving that in our county. So with that, I'd make a motion to approve the formation of this committee and the
I second
individuals.
his motion
Okay. Any other discussion?
with comment. The goals that you stated are spot on. I think that's going to be a big asset as far as keeping us in a position where we won't be taken advantage of cyberly. So
Yeah, the ultimate goal is to be more proactive. I think in the past, it's been more reactive, and you're going to have that, but just going forward, you know, people are getting smarter, and we need to be more on top of our game, so.
call the vote.
Okay. All's in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you
you,
very
Eric.
much, Eric. Deb? All right. See ya. Right there in the front row. Morning.
Easy in, easy out. Good morning. So I have a redaction agreement. It's like the standard agreement that we have every few years. I think it's like every 4 years, they reevaluate how many, it's based on images, on how many pages we do. So anyways, it's the standard agreement. Ed took a look at it. We just wanted to change on the front page on the pricing. That is a per year pricing. And then adding the standard language to it.
Yeah, so we'll add our standard addendum for our terms. Otherwise, the contract as modified is ready to go.
Okay.
Okay.
Entertain a motion?
I'd make motion, we accept the request.
Second that.
Okay. Any questions or discussion? All's in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you,
Thank
Ed,
you.
thank you for your work on that. Appreciate it.
Well,
Thanks, Deb. Leanne?
I'm
Morning.
coming, good morning. This is my favorite thing not. I'm coming before y'all. I had a request from the post office, Warsaw Post Office, and a property owner. They're over by Atwood. You should have a map that was provided to you for a portion of what is known as Main Street there, just outside on the east side of Atwood. They'd like to rename that from Main Street back to Old Road 30 because they have eliminated the Atwood Post Office and there's some problems with delivery. So with y'all's permission, we would love to do that.
Okay, I'd make the motion, we accept the request from the post office in Atwood. Is that correct?
Thank you.
Second that.
Okay. Any discussion, questions? All's in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Thanks.
Wonderful. Thank you,
Thank
gentlemen.
you,
We
Leanne.
can rename it
That wasn't so
Groninger
bad, was
Lane
it?
Later, Brad. Brad,
What's that?
we can rename it Groninger Road later.
Did the dog eat your paper there?
Yeah.
All right. Ed, do you have anything?
Yeah, we have one item on the agenda. It says Justice Building Security Ordinance. We're going to make a couple more tweaks to that after consulting with the judges. But we do have a health funding resolution, which I'll read for presentation here to the commissioners. So resolution accepting state public health funding, whereas the Indiana legislature has passed Senate Enrolled Act 4-223 and House Enrolled Act 1001-2023 to provide additional funding to Indiana counties to improve every Hoosier's access to the core public health services that help them to improve their health and well-being. 2, to receive the funding, the county is required to opt into the receipt of the funding via resolution. 3, the board recognizes the importance of public health to support a healthier community and create a better quality of life for its residents. 4, the acceptance of the funding does not transfer any county authority in operating the local health department to the state department in return for funding. Now therefore, the following is hereby determined, established, and resolved by the board. 1, The board supports initiatives that sustain and maintain core public health services at the county level with local input and flexibility to meet the needs and standards of the community. 2, the board commits to the county's right to self-direct and acknowledges and resolves that by the county opting in and accepting the funding, the county retains authority and control of the health department of the county, has afforded to it under state law pursuant to, but not limited to, Indiana Code 16-20-1-12I, which states that, quote, "A county that accepts additional funding to provide core public health services does not transfer any authority under statute in operating the local health department to the state department in return for the additional funding," close quote. 3, accordingly, the county hereby opts in to accept the funding. The resolution is submitted for consideration.
Thank you, Ed. I know this is something I've kind of took point on as we've kind of walked through the whole process down at the State House, and then recently multiple meetings and kind of webinars and such. But, you know, the state made a historic investment in health funding, you know, to help mitigate long-term health costs and increase the health and wellness of the residents of Indiana. You know, I did attend the last Kosciuszko County Health Board, and they did unanimously approve us opting into this funding. As the resolution does state, you know, the county does not lose control of our local health department as far as local control of that. So we're not giving up any control, as well as the county can opt out at any time if they feel as though the program is not providing, you know, benefit to our residents here. So with that, it kind of breaks up the funding into a couple different buckets. These aren't exhaustive lists, but just kind of generalization. About 40% of the money must be spent on historical kind of core health services like restaurant inspections, septic systems, building inspections, those types of things that historically the health department has already done. But 60% of the money then could be spent on new core health services such as chronic disease prevention, childhood lead screening, student health, tobacco prevention. Just both those are just to name a few. There's a whole long list of the things that it can be spent on, but they are pretty detailed. The county must match some additional dollars with this funding, as far as about a 20% match that the county does have to match. But that is roughly, you know, within budget of what we're currently matching with our general fund tax dollars into the health department. So it's not like it's going to take additional local tax dollars to be able to receive this funding. Also, the amount that we'll be receiving is still uncertain, as, you know, they don't know how many counties are going to opt in. So this is something that I think there has been over 60 counties already that's opted into this program. A rough estimate, these are just kind of round numbers, is somewhere about $2.7 to $3.7 million over the next 2 years. So it'd be 2 years, not each year is that much, but the combined value over those 2-year period. You know, that'd be a biannual budget then at the state to see whether that would be approved going forward. There would be some reduction in some current funding that we're getting from the state for the health department. So not all of those new dollars, all these dollars are new. Some of it will have to be used to fund some things that are already being funded with other dollars. The plan is that there would be an advisory council established, you know, to help give recommendations to the health board on how best to invest these additional funds and make the biggest impact in our community. The state of Indiana will require reporting on how these investments in our health services are making a difference in our community. So they've got a list of KPIs, key point indicators, making sure the money that we're investing is making a difference in our community. So, you know, this is a large investment into the health and wellness of the residents of Kosciuszko County that will have a lasting impact for generations to come. I'm excited to make the motion to approve K County opt in to the new state health funding.
I second his motion.
Thank you for your research on that. So, anybody have any other questions or comments?
I don't.
I was glad to see, I know this is quite a process down at the state level. It started out where there was a lot of state control over the health department, so it definitely evolved a lot, because in the beginning I was a strong opponent of this.
Right.
I still think it's a lot of money, but
Right.
we'll see how it goes. All right.
One of the things the state is looking at, just the cost, the amount of the budget that's going to Medicare each year continues to increase. You know, that this is, you know, not only is it, you want our residents of the state to have a healthy and enjoyable life, but it's also one that, you know, it's going to eat our lunch from a budgeting perspective if we can't stop some of those chronic conditions that are happening in our towns. So.
Okay, entertain that motion then. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Unanimous. Marcia?
I have one item on the agenda for you. This is a quote for professional food equipment services. This was an emergency repair to the walk-in cooler in the jail kitchen. Per our processes that we have in place, I contacted Brad and moved forward with this, and we just have to do the formal approval of this claim today, or this estimate today, which is in the amount of $13,184.74, and it was to replace the evaporator and the condensing unit in the walk-in cooler.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, any questions? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay,
That's all I have. Thank you.
all right.
Good, you're welcome.
Rhonda, do you have anything today?
Seriously.
All right. Is there any office holders, department heads, anybody have anything? Come for the commissioners? All right.
Okay.
Any other business come before us by anybody? If not, we'll plan on being back here on Tuesday, August 15th. Thank you.
Just so everybody knows, we will be having a joint meeting right after this. We'll sign our paperwork, get that done, and then we'll be rolling into the next meeting.
Who's the chairman of the ARPA committee?
Good morning, everybody. We'll go ahead and call the joint meeting together or to order to this morning, just to give a little bit of an idea of how this forum's going to lay out, just so everybody understands. I chair the ARPA committee for the county, so as we walk through this process, there's actually 3 different votes that'll happen after the presentation. So first would be the ARPA committee would look at the recommendations and make selections on projects. And then from there, it would go to the commissioners for approval, and Brad will kind of take control of the meeting at that point. And then lastly would be the council would vote on that approval, and Mike would take the control of the meeting at that point. So as we walk through this, if you remember, this is a process we've been working on with help now. We started in January of the beginning of 2022. So we've been at this for a bit. Amy's kind of been our lead cat herder as we've walked through this process, working with Okra, trying to get everything in order. Last year, we did vote to set aside ARPA funds for these projects. So these are not new funds. These are funds that have already been allocated, that have already been voted on by ARPA committee commissioners and the council, to set aside $1.2 million to fund the projects that are in the SIP, which is the Strategic Investment Plan of our HELP program. So a few months or 2 months back, we did have an earlier joint meeting, and that was to decide, because part of the HELP program, there was $1 million of CBDG dollars that were going to be awarded to us. And those dollars, the county selected to try and really try and move some of the projects forward in the small communities in our county, and we decided to allow all those small communities to have 100% of that CBDG funding to move their projects forward, which would be the Milford, Pearson, and Mentone are the 3 communities that will be using that CBG funds. We're currently working with MACOG, walking through that process, making sure everybody qualifies from an income study that Okra needs to meet, as well as that the projects we're doing. I mean, that's progressing. So we're hoping to see some income studies on the ones that need that starting soon. But, we are progressing through that. But the business of today is we're going to have presenters both from the Parks and Rec Board and from Kosciuszko County REMC/Kosciuszko Connect on projects that were in the SIP, that will be then selecting what projects we would like to see move forward and actually become a project, and utilizing that $1.2 million of ARPA funds that have been set aside to fund that. So this isn't new dollars. These are dollars that have already been appropriated from the ARPA to be able to move forward. So a couple key things. The project has to be on our SIP to be funded, so we're pretty limited. We have 4 projects that are going to be presented today, so we're pretty limited on our selection as far as what we can choose from. And that we have to, for us to receive the CBG, the $1 million of CBDG, we have to spend a minimum of $1 million of ARPA funds that was committed to meet that match. So there has been 1.2 set aside, but we do need to spend a minimum of $1 million, because it was a dollar for dollar match to get our CBDG funds. So just keeping that in mind, that we don't have to spend the full amount of the 1.2, but depending on which projects are selected and how you add them up, that's something to be looking at. But we don't have to spend all the way up to 1.2 either. So it could be something less so it needs to be between $1 million and $1.2 million that would need to be spent for us to qualify for our match from the CBGG funds. So before we start with our presentations, is there any questions as far as what we're trying to do, or what our job is for today? Great. With that, I'll ask that the recommendation, or the first to come up, is the Park and Recs Board, and give us a presentation of the 3 projects that they would like to see move forward for this funding.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I think everybody knows me, but if anybody else is online, I'm Rob Bishop. I'm president of the Parks Board. Mike Cusick is here. He's one of my members. Aggie Sweeney is right here, one of our members. Troy Turley is watching online. His work did not allow him to be here in person, and obviously Matt Metzger is our fifth. Sort of auspicious today is almost the 1-year anniversary of the first meeting of the Parks Board, and here we are ready to talk about really formal steps to turn dirt maybe pretty soon, which is certainly exciting for us. So we do have a slight PowerPoint. We're going to walk through some of the stuff. I'm going to present the trail plan, and Mike is going to present the other two options. So the first thing we're really talking about is obviously the master plan for the trails, whether they be blueways or greenways. And we did the 5-year plan, which the DNR requires. This is a much more granular plan that will help us decide where the trails should be, where the right-of-ways work, how we get across 30 potentially, all those sorts of things that are going to allow us to say, hey, we should build a trail here, and then we can look at what building that trail here looks like, how much money we think we're going to need, where that money is going to come from, so that then we can come back to the council and commissioners and say, here's our plan to build this specific trail and move forward with that. You can see we've got $110,000 there. I think everybody's aware Winona Lake has committed $30,000 they already have to this project. So from an ARPA standpoint, we're asking for $80,000 for this project. With that, if there's any questions on that one, I'd be happy to take them now or wait till the end, get all of them, or Mike can present on the other two.
All right, thanks, Rob. I'm going to talk about the Chinworth Bridge Greenway extension as well as the Lake James launch. So Rob just talked about the Greenways and Blueways Trail Plan, but we wanted to get a head start on some projects that are going to have high visibility, some immediate impact as well. And the first one we identified was the Chinworth Bridge Greenway extension. And this was an extension that was actually originally identified through a Michiana Active Transportation Plan as well as the Ford Kosciuszko Plan to extend our current greenways from the Chinworth Bridge along Route 30 into Marshall County. So it'd be going through Atwood and Etna Green. That's the end vision of it, but this would be the first phase of that. We identified this as a great opportunity to start with. If you can see on the map, you can see that we're looking to extend from the Chinworth Bridge as far as we can, at least to those neighborhoods, and possibly to Creighton Brothers or beyond. And there's a couple reasons for that. One is it extends the current greenway, and one of the things that really attracts tourists and recreational riders are having longer trail options. So it's the start of that. Getting to at least that neighborhood allows access to a lower income area so that they can get safe, non-motorized transportation either to the CCAC or into Warsaw and Winona Lake without having to use the roads if they're on a bike or walking as well. And then we just also saw it as a great opportunity for great visibility, the location itself, and in terms of a project, as well as hopefully minimal right-of-way access issues because, again, it's along that old 30 route. And what we're proposing here is a cost of $750,000. It's a design and build project. And we are also have done some preliminary work in hopes that we get approval on an RFP, and we want to start that process immediately following approval if we were to get that. Any questions on the Chinworth Bridge extension? Okay. And then the last project is the Lake James launch. And so we didn't want to leave Blueways out. It's one of the great resources that we have in our county, the lakes, the streams, and the Tippecanoe River. A lot of the Blueway activity is more about tourism and recreational activities. And our end goal is to identify different means of egress, access points along our entire Blueway system, so to encourage those type of activities. So what we saw with the James Lake launch was the opportunity to put in a launch that would allow non-motorized boat access, canoes, kayaks, paddle boards, access to Lake James, but then also in the Tippecanoe Lake, and then eventually into the river as well. And so that was this proposal, but at this point, we haven't identified the land or and specific location yet. The other piece of this, with its location, it gives access to a lot of the tourism spots in North Webster and Syracuse and the trails there and the lakes. And if we were to have a launch in this area, another thing we would consider, it could be a node for our greenway extensions into the current greenways, either in North Webster and also into the Syracuse and Wawasee trails. What's proposed on this is $250,000 cost, and RFP on this one, it's not as high prioritized as the first two. As a Parks Board, if we were to get approval, we'd really probably start this work in early 2024. So any questions on that?
No, I appreciate you coming in on and presenting on these, gentlemen. I know that the Greenway and Blueway Trail Plan is something that's, kind of we need to have a plan before we know where we're going. This is really the next step for the Parks Board. They've done a lot of hard work and have already come up with a master trail or a master parks plan. But this master Blueway and Trail Plan is definitely the next step that we know where we're going to be heading next and how we're going to connect the existing assets that are in our community. So really excited to see that. The Chinworth Bridge is kind of some low-hanging fruit as far as a project that right away shouldn't be as big of a problem as some of the other locations, as well as looking at the number of residents that this could actually serve. With West Haven Trailer Park and some of those areas out there, the population is actually really dense in that area, so it could really have a sizable impact for the length of trail that we are trying to build there. So from a return on investment, we'd be impacting a lot of residents with a short trail extension, as well as, it's an existing trail that is there that would be an extension to, and at some point, our goal is to try and get all the way over into Marshall County to be able to allow for connection even into a national trail system that would allow even greater recreational and activities to be able to come from, bikers from all over the state or all over the Midwest could ride through our area. So the James Lake launch is one that we've not, I think we're maybe a little bit ahead of where we need to be because we don't have that master trail plan to know where it's going to be best to connect that at. But long-term, being able to have that access point to connect up and have an actual blue way across both the lakes would be something that is desirable, but I just don't know that we're really quite ready for that one yet. So with that, does anybody else have any other questions for the Parks and Rec Board this morning? Okay,
All right,
thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Okay, next on our agenda then is Kosciuszko County RMC / Kosciuszko Connect. Morning, Kurt.
I'm assuming most everybody has copies of what I sent in, so if you need something, let me know and I can get that to you. I'm also joined this morning by our CEO, Kurt Carver, and our CFO, Tim Landergan, over there. And I've been asked to present on a fiber project to the town of Sydney. I do not have a PowerPoint this morning, so we're just going to kind of roll with what we've got presented already. So my role is Vice President of Technology and Broadband at Kosciuszko RMC and Connect. I was invited to be a part of the core advisory team for HELP, which we've heard a little bit about this morning. And then I also was a part of that pathway for the Advancing E-Connectivity group. So Kosciuszko Connect is a broadband service provider and subsidiary of Kosciuszko RMC. We established our business in November of 2020, and since then we've built over 1,100 miles of fiber optic network through our service territory in Kosciuszko County. Today we are excited that over 18,000 locations now have access to the best technology and fastest download and upload speeds available at affordable prices. Building fiber optic networks is expensive, and every rural customer that does not have access to fast, reliable broadband should have that access. We can all agree that reliable access is no longer a want but a need, and we're working with federal, state, and local governments to get access to funding so that we can expand our service to those areas and provide the necessary service to those customers that currently don't have adequate options available to them. In 2020, when COVID-19 disrupted our daily lives, we all needed to scramble to figure out how to work and learn from home with makeshift desks and classrooms. Even visits to your doctor were done from the kitchen tables and family rooms. Families faced unprecedented challenges to figure out how to make it all work. Corporations, schools, small businesses also needed to figure out how to overcome the same challenges to keep some semblance of everyday life as best we could. The common denominator in all of this was reliable internet. Many of us faced challenges when accessing the internet, whether it was a lack of speed or support from those service providers. All of us, let's see here. Fortunately, we had already started to formulate a plan internally with our board of directors, employees, and consultants to build a world-class network. And in reality, we couldn't build that network fast enough. And I'm happy to say, as of today, Kurt would probably be remiss if I didn't mention that we have connected over 7,000 of those customers in Kosciuszko County today. The E-Connectivity Committee developed 3 broadband investment priority areas. Those locations are segmented into 9 zones. That's on page 5 of the map. Bill Holder did that for us. A portion of the Sydney BIPA was selected for this proposal, where we plan to service over 90 locations. They currently do not have great access, and then you can kind of see that proposed area on page 6 of that map. It's the blue area. According to the FCC, broadband is defined as 25 meg down and 3 meg up. By comparison, Kosciuszko Connect offers symmetrical speeds ranging from 100 down and 100 up to 1,000 down or 1,000 up, or gigabit service. If you have our service already, you're familiar with the difference it has made in your life already. Every single service provider is required to report the bandwidth speeds to the FCC for the areas they serve. When studying the FCC broadband map in the Sydney area, they've got a digital subscriber line provider with listed speeds of 10 meg down, 1 meg up. The other providers are either fixed wireless or satellite options, and although those speeds reported are faster, air quote, than the FCC standard, their technology cannot compete with fiber optic, nor can it handle the requirements of today's households. It is estimated that families will have over 50 connected devices in the near future, and the bandwidth requirements that come with those devices, such as streaming, working or learning from home, telemedicine visits with your doctor, and even monitoring your home thermostat, all require a great connection. I think we can all agree that the definition from the FCC of what quantifies as broadband at 25.3 is not adequate. Additionally, technologies such as fixed wireless, satellite, and even legacy DSL are not acceptable for today's use. And just a little note on fiber optic, because we've had these concerns in our meetings at the office. You know, it's been around since the 60s, so we don't believe it's going anywhere anytime soon. So any questions on that first part there? So the next 2 pages in the packet are the maps that I referred to. You can see those 3 zones. And then if you switch over to page 6, you can kind of see those address points there that we've identified as part of this project that we're going to build out to. The green area I would like to point out is our existing Kosciuszko REMC service territory. The blue is what we plan to build out to, which includes the possible location of the Sydney Tower. Those 4 address points to the northwest fall outside of our kind of this project zone. So the scope for this project is we're going to build a fiber optic network to the town of Sydney, pick up those 93 locations. Kosciuszko REMC will build that network. Kosciuszko Connect will operate that network, and what I mean by operate is we're the ones that service the account with broadband telephone services. The project cost is $302,798.45. When we are complete, there will be a fully operational fiber network down to the town of Sydney, plus that possible tower location, and we're estimating possibly Q2 or the beginning of Q3 2024 that we could have this complete. Obviously, with any project, we have constraints or concerns. Full disclosure, right, like we all know that there's issues with material and labor and all of this other stuff. You can see what I've listed out there with possible permitting with the State Road of 13, Indiana State Road 13 and railroads. Those have been a big challenge for us, and then engineering and construction timelines. However, our engineering group, Jeff Moore, Rich Siniger back in the office, have got great working relationships with all of these folks, and we don't really foresee that these being issues, but it is something to be aware of. The next page is just kind of the work estimate that I was asked to put together. It includes that cost for to the tower and to the town of Sydney. And then finally, On that last page, if you're not already familiar with our rates and what we do, I've listed off some rates there for our standard residential packages, right? So the standard plan, 100 meg down, 100 meg up, compared to that 10.1 that you're seeing in that DSL provider, is $49.95 a month, all the way up to $79.95 a month for that premium service. We do offer telephone, so we've got some pricing tiers for that as well. Crystal clear. We've heard some issues here in the county recently of folks not maintaining that legacy copper infrastructure that's out there, so we do offer telephone. We also do Lifeline and ACP, so quickly on what that is Lifeline and ACP are for families that qualify. These programs are designed to help families who need help with their monthly service costs. Lifeline offers a discount of $9.25 a month for eligible subscribers and can only be applied to one family and one service. So if you've got internet and phone, $9.95. Just got internet, $9.25. If you just have phone, $9.25. We also offer ACP. So ACP is a little different. You also have to qualify for that, but that's a credit of $30. So if you're looking at that standard plan of $49.95 with that $30 credit, if you qualify, you have really awesome internet for $19.95 a month. We, of course, have business options, right, too. Those are highly customizable to each business, so I'm not going to go over that in detail, but there are business options there as well. So in summary, I want to thank the committee. I want to thank Amy for helping us through all of this and for the opportunity to present today. We truly feel like we're making a difference in the community by doing the fiber project. We're very fortunate to be able to do that. I asked our marketing team to kind of pull a few quotes from customers, and this one's my favorite that she pulled. We finally were able to switch to better internet with Kosciuszko Connect. It's incredible now to work, study, play at home without buffering every single second. Thank you, Kosciuszko RMC, for helping our community in this way. Last week, with our old internet, it took 3 hours to upload pictures to Facebook. This week, it took 1 second. And we see those comments all the time. So I appreciate the time this morning. I know we're anxiously awaiting the decision, and if you have any questions, I will be more than happy to answer those questions.
Thank you, Kurt. Appreciate your efforts on your presentation this morning. Just to give a little background on this, as part of you can see there's quite a list. I think was a total of 8, I think, different locations that we identified through this process that were lacking in internet service. But this particular one was one of those that the need was great, and there wasn't necessarily anybody down in that area that was going to take this area on, because some of Kosciuszko County's or Kosciuszko Connect's they've worked on trying to get current customers connected. So this is an area that is actually, is it AEP or is it Duke?
Kurt, it's Duke
It's
area.
Duke Energy down in this area. So that's some of the reason why this area wasn't built out as part of, a greater plan of REMC's plan. But, as we went down through and looked at the different regions that we had, this was one that kind of rose to the top from a perspective of the number of residents that we could impact, and just how poor a service they currently had down in that location. As well as, if you even look at the quote, this is where we're talking about sticking our 4th tower for our public safety communication system. So as this project would go in, this would also kind of work hand in hand with what we would need for that 4th tower at this location as well. So we're a little bit kind of killing 2 birds with 1 stone of being able to extend this fiber connection down into this area to be able to provide not only what the county would need for its communications, but also how we could help Sydney really have dependable internet service. We all know how that is no longer a nicety, it's a necessity to be able to even, it's not just business, even just at home. We all, whether it's streaming or getting online or medical, whatever it is, it's a really important part. So there are a lot of key things that, as far as the selection of why did we pick this one over the other 7 that are around the county, this was one we really felt as though was within reach of what we could do as a committee as well as impacting an area that is in dire need, and also helping the county with their tower project as we would move forward. So there was just to give you an idea of why, because there was a whole list of projects, but this is the one that kind of rose to the top that we really felt as though we could make happen. So with that, is there any other questions for Kurt?
I have a question for you, Kerry.
Yes.
If we have this project going on in the Sydney area, how does this affect our towers? I mean, what would this do for our tower project?
Well, part of the towers, what we need is that redundancy in the tower. So the tower not only has radio waves that it's transmitting, but also it has a fiber connection to where the towers are all interconnected. For some reason, one part of one tower goes down, it can still work by using the fiber connection to go from another tower to still send or receive that message. The same thing with the tower will also have, or how we would propose it, would also have a microwave. So there needs to be that double redundancy in how those towers can communicate to one another, because they all kind of daisy chain together. And this is caused by that whole Eel River Valley, kind of in that southeast corner of our county, falls off down into the Eel River, and we end up with a shadow that our current tower at Claypool just, I mean, it works well in a vehicle, but if you're on a handheld communicator, radio, that's where we're just not getting that coverage in a few areas down in that area that we're really wanting to try and boost that up.
I'd just like to make a comment. That's my district down there. I represent those people. And for the last 12, 16 years, those people have called me and said, you know, we can't get out of our back pocket. We're underwater down here. And there's nothing being done. And I assured them that with our tower systems that we're designing and with what you're doing with Kosciuszko Connect, they're going to come back and be a part of our planet. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for Kurt? Okay, thank you.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.
From there, that's our presentations today. So from there, I'll kind of call an ARPA committee meeting to order. I guess would love to hear discussion from the other two members, both Suzanne and Mike. Just thoughts on the projects, any questions? I know I've probably been as knee-deep in this as anybody out there, as well as Amy's here. We've got Amy, we've got Maycog, we've got a lot of different people here to answer questions. So if there's anything that we need to have answered, I think we've got the people in the room to help us answer those questions. Your mic's off too, just FYI.
Thanks. The master plan is a given, I believe, in my humble opinion. Obviously, we have to have a plan before we know where we're going. To include the Chenworth Bridge Trail, before we have that plan, if there's anything we could probably pick off easily, I agree, Carrie, that would be the easy one to pick off, to choose to include. I struggle with the money and where we're at. The Tippy River, obviously, that's my area. And I believe that would be a great program, one that I would hope we would not lose sight of, that it would eventually get in the hopper for choice. And then the REMC one, that calculates out to be $3,255.89 per location for those 90 homes or so, or 90 locations that would be included. That's a lot of money, but I've read a lot of articles where it costs more than that per site. I've read up to way more than that. So I think the cost seems to be, while it's a lot of money, it does seem to be reasonable. I appreciated your explanation and your sharing that, Carrie, the fact that this is not in the REMC's area, that it is another power provider's area. And that's why they would probably not be working into that, So with that, I think I've shared where I'm at.
Mike?
I guess the only comments I would have was, we have basically $1.2 million here to work with. We have requests over the $1.2 million, so where do we, how do we divide this up? I look at possibly doing something as a percentage-wise. So they're all important in their own way. However, the bridge, I get that. But this was kind of our plan going into it, that this is what we chose to use this for. So where do we go with the division of the funds? To make it easy, in my mind, we go straight percentage of what we have, spread it across the projects listed here. So, I mean, we all have our own personal bias as far as the importance of each and every project. So I always try to look at what's the most equitable and fair way to do it. So
I guess I totally understand your thought there. The only thing that I would be a little concerned of is these are ARPA dollars, so we got to remember they have to be identified or allocated by the end of 2024, but spent by 2026. And not that the James Lake launch probably still couldn't make that, but because we don't have the plan yet, I mean, the master trail and parks plan is gonna, it wouldn't surprise me that that's not most of next year to probably get that completed. That we're pushing that project. I mean, I've been amazed at what the Parks Department or Parks Board has done in the last year. So I'm not trying to sell you guys short that you couldn't get it done, but, I know that they've been on a dead sprint for the last 12 months, so I hate to ask them to do another 12.
well, and I think as an ARPA committee, we've already kind of talked about having a cutoff date of September of '24.
Right,
If
right.
you can have something in place by then, we'll work with it. Otherwise, we're going to have to ask for these funds back.
Right.
So that we can utilize the funds before it expires. So.
The other thing I would add is just that, with the projects that we select, I think most of these, other funding sources that are out there delaying the funding source from actually being complete could slow down these projects actually moving forward to try and identify what other funds. I know Kurt and his team, they've worked hard to try and figure out how they could make this as cost-effective as they could for REMC to fund those residents down in Sydney. I know that there is, they will have some revenue at the end of this, but I think that was all figured into their calculation on what they needed to try and get to a break-even point of what needed to be paid for to try and get that. Because some of the estimates we had originally were higher than that. The one thing that we could do if we wanted to try and reduce it a little, the 42,000 that was in there for the tower, I mean, it's kind of an extension that we need for Sydney and we need for the tower, so it's not like it can't be done, but that could be funded with dollars other than what's in help if we would choose to do that, but it will need to be funded somehow. I think, Marcia, correct me if I'm wrong, we still do have ARPA funds set aside for that connection that we could use if we wanted to reduce and pull that out of this and pay for that through that other allocation, or whether it gets rolled into this. I mean, that is something that we could do to reduce that number maybe a bit.
So the 42,000, sorry, can I ask?
Sure.
42,171, that is all we need from a county standpoint to have that tower functional for what we need. Is that correct? Or is there more
I'd
there?
probably, Kurt, I'd have to ask that question of you. If we would choose not to do, at least I think what I understand your question, Brad, if we would choose not to build build out the fiber connections into Sydney and we only wanted the connection to the tower, would it be $42,000? Was that your question?
Yes.
Brad?
Yeah, if you just wanted, that's why I broke it up that way.
Okay.
If you just wanted to do the tower and not worry about Sydney at all, that's the price for that. I would say that number, that 42,000, does take into account that we are picking up residents in Sydney that we do resell services.
So the capacity would be there for them to be able to have that in the future.
On,
Preference would be obviously to do both. It's easier construction wise for our guys in the field. We have to go that way anyway. That's how we're coming in. So
Right.
you could just do the tower if you so choose.
now you're saying the town of Sydney is a different utility?
Yes.
AEP?
Duke Energy.
Okay, Peak Energy. Okay, are you going outside of your RAMC coverage area in any other parts of the county?
We are looking at those areas.
Looking or doing?
Well, a little of both, right?
Okay.
So there are areas in our county where, you know, we had to build fiber to get to our members of Kosciuszko REMC, and we've identified those areas that are easy to pick up, right?
Okay.
So it's not big areas, it may be one or two homes that are going that way. The way we're looking at it is several different ways, right? You've got some line extension stuff from the state, private funding. There are folks that have done some private funding, and then of course, federal government dollars as well. So, you know, we've been a recipient of RDOF, the Rural Digital Opportunity Fund, when we started. Tim and I worked very hard on Next Level 3. We've won some money there, which we're still waiting to receive because Okra keeps changing some environmental stuff on us. And then obviously working with Carrie and the county here on this project. So, you know, as you pointed out, it's very expensive to build, and we're trying to do the best we can by everybody's dollars.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
I think the percentage idea makes me wonder, the Parks Board plan is all on the county. So if we percentaged, we would be taking out of other money
To fund the remainder of
to fund the remainder of everybody else. That doesn't seem to make good economic sense to me. I'm sorry. Seems to me like we've got to pick and move.
Sure.
Also, with regard to the James Lake boat launch, is it the case that we not only have to have the plan made and then also identify the property and potentially purchase property in order to make that go? Is that correct? So that's going to delay just the time frame in which we can accomplish.
So the Parks Board has their work cut out for them.
Yeah.
Sure.
Just as a point of reference, not every project that is in the strategic investment plan at this moment has to be funded today. So with the projects, when you're looking at those projects, for example, I'm listening, doing active listening. It sounds like Lake James is the one that we're concerned about. So if we're worried about time because of the ARPA funds, the point of the strategic investment plan was to hold projects for future development as well. So that plan, not all of the plan has to be funded at this moment. So if you were more partial towards 3 of the projects and wanted to leave that one in to give the team here more time, that is truly acceptable.
Well, and that, I think that's part of our discussion where we talked about a cutoff date to get this money reallocated somewhere else if it's not utilized. And, you know, September of '24, you know, it's not that far off, but there's a lot of time between now and then that a lot of work can be done. So I'm not worried about that risk at this point, as long as we hold that, you know, line to September 1 of '24. And we're obviously probably will have a Plan B, you know, which I think we already have discussed Plan B. So, you know, I don't see the risk as far as the timeline. We can kind of fly with it and see how it evolves. You know, this is what we felt this was, you know, these programs were important to the help programs. So, you know, I think we could safely move forward knowing with our cutoff date, we're not going to, you know, lose this funding. So.
I'd like to ask the Park Board a question. I mean, I know from a conversation perspective, you know, obviously, I think the master trail and Blueway plan is key and top of the list. I know we're looking at the Chenworth Bridge extension as kind of some low-hanging fruit, some points to put on the board pretty early. I mean, from a funding perspective and just overall ranking of a project, how far down the ranks is the James Lake launch? You know, I know that there's some other projects that's been talked about. I think some of the reason that this one even made it on the SIP was because there was a particular area around where we were looking at that the funding, the income of that particular area was below and would possibly qualify for CBGG funds. So I think some of the reasons that that project was maybe even selected on the list over others was because of its ability to maybe be funded by CBDG funds. So I guess, long question there. I guess, where do you see the rank of that Lake James? I mean, if you were, would you rather see the first two projects fully funded and Lake James off the table? Or would you rather see partial funding of all those?
My viewpoint is the Trail Master Plan is definitely a given. We have to have the Trail Master Plan, so I'd certainly ask you to do that. The Chinworth Bridge is an amazing opportunity. We already have the right-of-way. We know we can do there. It's also a great building block for the Parks Board to go out and build a piece of trail without having to worry about land acquisition and some of the other issues. Lake James is a whole nother story because now we've got to go out and we've got to acquire a piece of land. We have to find the land. It's really a next step in difficulty for the Parks Board for that. So in terms of what I'd like us to see, yes, I definitely want to see 1 and 2. And I think Lake James becomes something we do as the master plan comes into existence and informs us where the best place is to put that.
May I make a comment, Carrie?
Sure, sure.
I would like to see the Greenways and Blueways trail plan done and the bridge and the fiber construction in its entirety. I don't think we need to leave Sydney out. And like Bob, that's my area. So that's just my suggestion.
Any other questions from the ARPA committee?
Yeah, I would like to add, the purpose of the Lake James is to connect it for kayakers and things to Lake Tippecanoe, or because of that, go on through to the river?
Exactly. That long-term would be, yeah, they would connect up the Tippecanoe River. You could actually go from pretty much tip to stern of the Tippy Lakes and then into the Tippy River and then on downstream from there.
Because unless things have changed, about 15 years ago, Barry Black took me in a state police helicopter over Tippecanoe River, and there's so many obstructions, and there's anybody using it now at all for kayaking and things? Because there were so many instructions, and we had so many regulations. You can't go in there with mechanized equipment, power equipment. It had to be done by hand, and so has anything been done since then?
I talked to one of my customers just yesterday. They took their family, tried to go down the river, and they stopped.
Yeah.
They said it's too much work, there's too much debris in the river, and it's taking a course off the river actually because of the erosion, because of the trees in the river. And so that's a major issue. I'm not sure that can be done the way it is now.
There's been a lot of handwork done over the years, and, you know, it's all great and good until the next windstorm comes through, so.
There is a couple paddling clubs that, I mean, there's actually even a livery that drops in there at the city wastewater treatment plant and floats down the Tippy. But I think that section that we're talking about from like US 30 on up to Tippecanoe Lake, you know, I think that you may spend as much time out of the canoe or kayak as you spend in it. But I mean, it's the body of water gets bigger as you come south. But I mean, it's one of those things that I think you know, as we would build support and a plan around that, our hope would be, you know, we would start to clear those out sections at a time. But obviously, they don't stay open once. I mean, it's an ongoing maintenance issue, because I know that was even some of the things that I think has been talked to about at the state level of naming that a navigable waterway. Then I think you qualify for even some DNR funding to help keep the log jams out of the river, which long-term, I think, would be where we'd want to try and get to where you could actually keep that a navigable waterway, because that would improve drainage and allow it for recreation activities. So I think first would be, from an ARPA committee perspective, is we would need to move a motion forward or a recommendation forward then to the commissioners and then on to the council. Hear a motion? Or is there other additional questions? I want to push this if we're not done talking about it.
Is there a possibility that we fund the REMC project partially?
The only thing that I would say with that is we have to get to that $1 million minimum spend.
So if we funded the 80,000 and the 750,000, and we did the full amount for what REMC is asking, that would be $1.132 million. If we rounded that back and we paid 170,000 of it, would they be willing to do 132,000 of it?
I guess that would be a question
Yeah.
for Kurt from a perspective. If we didn't do a full award on the Sydney project, is there other opportunities out there to get the remaining funding to be able to finish that project?
So I will say that BEAD is definitely out there. That's coming in that infrastructure bill. That's a long ways away. The last meeting that I went to in Elkhart, I think they're hoping to start BID funding out by Q1 of 2025. Between now and that time, there's going to be a year of challenges in that time. If it's anything like next level with what Tim's dealing with now, it very easily could be 2026 before we see some additional funding for the county. So if we're looking for that quick win for that southeast part of the county, I would say this is our best shot for that. But yes, there is some BEAD funding coming a few years down the road for that. And we're still learning about all that.
And that's probably going to put us past our timelines we'd really want from knowing where the ARPA funds are going to be spent. Yeah. Yep.
Gary, I have a question. I don't know if it would be Amy or Rob. On the Chenworth Bridge extension, isn't that a possibility for CBDG funds in that area? I thought because isn't that an income situation? Is there any amount? But
So we would have to most likely do an income survey for that.
Right, but aren't we on task to do that? Aren't we
We are
working on
not.
doing that? Okay.
So when we had the presentation, if you remember, with the last collective
Correct.
meeting, I believe it was decided to do scenario 4, which was to distribute the money based on the distribution schedule. And we are currently working with MACOG at this moment to do the income surveys for the 2 communities that have to be made eligible for that. So
Gotcha.
it could potentially have been, but
But then we would need an income study for
But you would
that
have to do
area
an
as well.
income survey,
Gotcha.
and there's no guarantees on
Okay.
that specifically.
I was just curious.
Yeah,
Thank
of all
you.
of them, it was the closest
Correct.
per se.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Running some figures here. If we would fully fund the 80, the 750, cut the James Lake back to 100 to hopefully facilitate the location of a spot, and fully fund the Kosciuszko RMC project, that would be about what we have to work with. To me, that would keep things moving forward. However, I do have reservations about tax dollars going to a public utility.
I know that, the only thing I would have concerns on of partially funding the James Lake is just that, that money does have to be spent, and whether or not we're ready for that, whether that would be for the engineering of that or design or possibly the purchase of the property. I mean, there's things that could be done for
Right.
sure. But we don't have to, remember, if we don't spend all the 1.2, that money can roll back into the ARPA pot for distribution in other ways as well. So whether we would choose that we really want to spend our maximum amount or something less than that, we just have to be over that $1 million to get our dollar for dollar match on the CBG funds.
But only 200,000 of it could roll back. We have to
Correct,
spend.
correct,
We have to
exactly.
do $1 million, yeah.
Only 200,000 could roll back. We have to spend $1 million. I realize that seeing tax dollars to fund private industry or private companies from a fiber perspective, I guess the thing that I see, part of the county's job is to provide services or utilities to our residents, whether that's drainage, whether that's streets, whether that's, police, law enforcement, all the different things that we provide. And I guess I would start to differ that internet is one of those things that it's practically a necessity of life anymore. I realize that there's other funds out there, but those are tax dollars as well. This is funny money we kind of got from the feds. I mean, it's kind of coming from the same pot. It's just a matter of being able to have a project that we could utilize and move forward. I think it would be a nice gesture for that part of the county to be able to help them get the internet that they desperately need. We've worked with REMC, Rochester Telephone, and New Paris Telephone on the other areas that we have and are working on a plan on how those other areas can be built out as well. So it's not like we're just picking them over the other, but this was kind of the only one that was within range that we thought we could get to a dollar amount, and the infrastructure was already there, plus the other infrastructure that we needed for the tower was going to need to be there. So there was just a lot of things that this checked the most boxes of what we could move forward. But the committee has looked intently about the other areas that are on the list and who could best serve at the most cost-effective way these other areas that are out there. So it's not like we're not that we've lost sight of those other communities, but this is one that we thought was definitely within reach. I guess I'd like to make a motion that we would fully fund the Greenway Blueway Trail Plan, the Chenworth Bridge Greenway Extension, and the fiber connection for broadband for the town of Sydney is what I would make a motion to.
Second.
So we got a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Just ARPA. So the motion carries. So from there, I'll turn it over to Brad. Brad, if you want to bring it to a vote for the commissioners on the projects, or any other commentary you'd like to share?
We'll bring it to a vote. The only I would say, and I'm one of the biggest fans of REMC, but I'm also consider myself a constitutionalist and very conservative, and I have a problem putting tax dollars into business use. That's a fundamental problem I have. So that's just my comment, but we'll go ahead and entertain a motion.
Make a motion we accept the recommendation of the ARPA committee.
I'll second that.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
And opposed? Aye.
Okay. Thank you. Next, then we'll turn it over to Mike.
Okay. I would look for a motion from the council to either accept or deny the ARPA committee recommendation.
I'd like to make a motion to accept the ARPA committee's recommendation on the ARPA funds.
Second. Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, usual sign.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, motion carried.
All righty. Well, thank you, everyone. So with that, the selection of the three projects that we're moving forward for the HELP project is the Greenway Blueway Master Trail Plan, the Chenworth Bridge Greenway Extension, and the fiber connection for broadband to the town of Sydney. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. That's not right.
Motion to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. We're officially adjourned. Well.
In case I don't see you, happy early birthday.
Thank you. So here's my other piece of this. John said on the committee. He said on the committee.
Oh, we did?
Rhonda, do you have to sign anything?
That's, yeah.
You need to sign the. No, Carrie's the only one that has to sign it. Here's the downside to this, that the committee should be smart. He sat on the freaking committee.
Say what now?
He sat on the committee that made this decision. He was a part of the committee trying to decide what projects should be done.